Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Steve Kenyon Podcast. I'm Steve Kenyon. Thank you for joining us. We're sponsored by Equinity, online at teamequinity.com. Thank you to Wrangler, Long Live Cowboys, to M2 Ranch Jerky, online at m2-ranch.com, to the Justin Boot Company, to the Grandview at Las Vegas, and to Rodeo Life Magazine. Those are some of the people that bring you our Steve Kenyon Podcast every week, 3 times a week, usually on 8secondsmedia.com, and you can find us all of your favorite podcasting sites. And of course, we hope you will like and subscribe to our 8 Seconds Media Facebook page. We try to keep you in touch with all the latest in the world of Western sports. And a fun story to tell today. Josey Butler is a barrel racer. She's a mom. She's an artist. She's a reined cow horse trainer. She actually barrel races in her cow horse saddle, which is a little bit unique. She just won the rodeo in West Monroe, Louisiana. And we were doing the story on the Cowboy Channel, and my friend Elise Wade got to looking Josey up and talk to me about all the different things that she does as an artist, as a horse trainer. And I thought Josey Butler would be a fun story to share with all of our listeners on my show. So with that in mind, in just a moment, you will hear from Josey Butler. And we'll have a chance to check out some of her artwork, hear that story, hear the story of her horse, hear the story of how she does and why she does some of the things she does. Very interesting lady. We'll get to it on the other side of this timeout. Let's hear from a couple of our sponsors, and then it's time for Josey Butler on the Steve Kenyon Podcast.
Rodeo fans, it's just about NFR time in Las Vegas. Where are you staying? How about the Grandview? Big rooms, right across the street from the South Point. With kitchens and your own personal laundry, you'll feel like you're right at home. Log on to dailymanagementresorts.com. That's dailymanagementresorts.com. Give the Grandview a call and tell them you heard about it from 8 Seconds Media, the Leaderboard Report, or the 8 Seconds Update. Stay at the Grandview once and you'll want to go back again and again. The Grandview at Las Vegas. dailymanagementresorts.com.
Hi, I'm Trevor Brazil, 26-time PRCA World Champion Cowboy. If you want to keep your horse at the top of their game, you need to have the Equinity Edge. I use Equinity because it's all about the horse. It helps with the longevity and overall maintenance of my horses. Team Equinity is challenging you to try Equinity Horse XL for the next 30 days and beyond. Watch how your horse transforms both in look and feel. To do this, go to teamequinity.com to get started.
Steve Kenyon Podcast is being presented by Wrangler, Long Live Cowboys. Thank you to the Justin Boot Company, the Standard of the West since 1879, to Resistol, proud sponsors of the Resistol Rookie of the Year Award. To the Cowboy Channel and Next Gen Rodeo, to the Grandview at Las Vegas and Equinity. It's all about the horse, online at teamequinity.com. To Rodeo Life Magazine, to the Gooding Pro Rodeo in Gooding, Idaho, and of course to the Grandview at Las Vegas. Today's featured interview brought to you by Classic Equine. Play to win. We are Classic Equine, and by Classic Ropes. Success is in your hand. Barrel racer, reined cow horse trainer, cowgirl artist, Josey Butler joins us on the Steve Kenyon Podcast. Welcome to the Steve Kenyon Podcast. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. You've got a lot of different irons in the fire.
A lot, yeah. I live on energy drinks.
I want to read from your Facebook page because I think this is funny. In your introduction on Facebook, you describe yourself as a mama, wife, gypsy horse trainer, and creative director for Butler Horses and Streak and Bee Art. Is there something special about the gypsy horse trainer part? Tell me about that.
No, just kind of, most artists are about half hippie and gypsy, and of course, rodeo people and horse show people are very much gypsies. So just kind of a, funny play on words with that.
I could describe myself as a gypsy rodeo announcer, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk real quick about winning West Monroe, and then I want to get into some of the other things. And you've got some of your work displayed behind you. Tell me about the horse that you ride. Tell me about how that rodeo's set up, and then I want to ask you a question about your saddle after that.
So his name's Red Horse Remix. I bred and raised him. His mother was my first good futurity horse that I was blessed to get to train for the Judd Little Sale and keep and compete on for Rick Large out of Florida. And when her career was over as a barrel horse, the people who had purchased her, Lorraine and Larissa Bolin, were kind enough to send her home to be my broodmare. So kind of his name comes from his mom was a little tiny red mare that could run with the futurity horses, and then his sire is a East Texas stallion that we lost a couple years ago. Jesse's Double D, and Double D is bred like my good rodeo horse, King Scoots, who is buried out here in my arena. So when he came out and he was red, that's what we named him, was Red Horse Remix, and it just kind of because it's kind of just a combination of two of my favorite horses I've ever had, and he's definitely living up to it.
You have a lot of people ask you about this, so I'm just going to ask you right off the bat. You don't ride in a barrel saddle.
No,
You ride in a
I
cow
don't.
horse saddle.
I do. So I about 5 years ago started showing in the Rein Cow Horse in the NRCHA, and I've always rode good barrel saddles. But when I got to showing, when I finally broke down and bought a good cow horse saddle, I went to showing in that, and I couldn't stand to sit in a barrel saddle after that. I always felt like the hood ornament on a Chrysler, and so I went back to CJ Murphy, who I bought my Martin cow horse saddle from, and I was like, man, I need something that sits like my cow horse saddle, but single skirt. Well, there's a saddle they have called the Martin Performance Saddle that a lot of the cow horse trainers actually ride in. It's got a little bit more swell to it than the actual branded cow horse saddle. And they make them in both a double and a single skirt. And so CJ happened to have a single skirt one already made, and I got it. And it gets a lot of comments at the horse or at the barrel races because I'll step out of it and they'll see how big the seat is because it's a 16-inch seat. But I ride way better than that than I ever did in any barrel saddle.
That's interesting. I've always my life in barrel racing. We've always been trying to get something that, I mean, is obviously comfortable, but is a fairly tight. If you've got a 13-inch seat backside, you don't want to be sitting in a 16-inch saddle. But you're saying it's helped.
I mean, it has. And like, if you go to the cowboy shows, there is, I think maybe one adult trainer, and she's about 5 foot tall, riding in a saddle less than a 15 and a half. And really, saddle size, if you go to the old saddle makers, they'll tell you it's based on the length of your torso and proportion to your legs. It's not really based on the size of your hind end. And so, I go two-handed down the fence on my first snaffle bidder, and I'm chasing a live target going wide open, and I've never felt like I was going to come out of the buggy at all like that. So, of course, you get to use saddle horn running barrels. So
That's an interesting crossover between showing performance horses, showing rein cow horses, and barrel racing. Horsemanship is horsemanship. I've always contended that. Athleticism in horses is athleticism in horses. But
absolutely,
they're two different disciplines,
Mhm.
but I can see where the ability to ride and stay in the middle of one is essential to both.
Oh, it is. And I'll tell you, more than anything, the cow horse has helped my mental game with barrel racing because, as a barrel racer growing up, you get caught up in the I want to win, I want to beat somebody, go fast, go fast. In cow horse, you're going through three disciplines. And so you end up learning to prepare your horse and show that horse to the best of what it is. And that has actually made me a lot more successful in the barrel pen mentally because I don't show up and worry about anything but knowing I'm riding a fast horse, is he ready to go win it or not? Because I have a young horse that's not, so I don't ask him to win.
This might be Steve's dumb question to the interview, but would you ever take your barrel horse into a rein cow horse pen or vice versa?
I have. So I started Remix in the cow horse. He was not a great stopper. He still isn't. It usually takes him about half the warm up fin to pull up. But I actually, my first snaffle bit in 2000, I showed a traffic guy down the fence, and he did respectable. My daughter actually rides him now, and we rope on him. And he can run barrels, but he babysits my daughter so well that I haven't pushed him. But yeah, I mean, it's good for them. And the thing about the cow horse is, not every cow horse will make a Wendy barrel horse because, I mean, we're breeding freaks in the barrel racing industry, just like the cutting and the cow horse. But they can all go do something. They can all go be a ranch rider or a rope horse. The rope horse fraternities are getting so huge. And there's just a place for those horses. So it's a really cool industry.
You're a very much Texas ranching mom, aren't you? I mean, I tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into the equestrian way of life, how you got into barrel racing, who got you started, and then I want to talk to you about some of that beautiful artwork behind you.
So I actually grew up in Missouri on a cow calf operation, and Grandpa didn't have any grandsons, so there was two of us girl cousins that we helped him with the cattle, and everybody had horses. My mom, she barrel raced until about 2 years ago, and um, she, just grew up. I did the 4-H thing. I didn't do the junior rodeo kid strapped on a rocket. I waited 3 times a year for the rodeo or the horse show to come to town. And really until I started junior rodeo and 15, 16 years old, I, just rode horses all the time. That's all I did. I mean, we had no social media back then for kids to waste their minds on. So, but then I did go to Northeastern Oklahoma A&M on a college rodeo scholarship, and then back to Fort Scott my last year at eligibility. Wasted some more of the government's money before I became a horse trainer and a artist. But just I love horses. Like I love great horses in all disciplines. I paint everything from English to cutting to pleasure. So, just kind of it's just always been in me.
Tell me about the inspiration for painting. Do you do some sculpture too?
I do. I do. This piece right here beside me is called Enemy Lines. It's been really popular. I paint and sculpt like a lot of what I see and feel in the arena, both the rodeo arena and the cow horse. Like, all three of these pieces behind me are different. This one on bottom is a run and stop kind of progression. This one's a cut and horse drop down. And then that one is actually, you can't, it's kind of far away, but it's a saddle bronc rider carrying a saddle and chaps, and it belongs to NFR qualifier Joaquin Riel. I just did it, and Walk makes my show chaps, so we do a little trading. We went to college together, and so kind of a little bit of just the feeling of whatever industry it is, whatever you see or feel.
Yeah, if you're hanging out Joaquin Real, you're hanging out with real cowboys at that point.
Oh gosh, I mean, I haven't hung out with him in years, but we keep in touch, and he makes some really cool leggings and show chaps, and he's made 2 pair for me. And but yeah, Walks cowboy straight through and through.
So how does this is definitely Steve's dumb question of the interview, but I'm going to ask it. Where does the inspiration? I mean, do you see something and you say, "I want to paint that"?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, that's
is it
exactly how it happens. So before I started showing full time in the cow horse pen, I was just jacking with it. I think it was in 2018. I didn't know everybody. I mean, I know everybody now because I've painted most of them. But I was at the Sample Bit finals, and Corey Cushing was riding SJR Diamond Mist. He won it that year on it. But that was probably the first cow horse piece I did that a lot of people have bought. Corey ignored the buzzer. You get a new cow and cow horse if you have one that either doesn't want to go anywhere or has no respect. And Corey's got out there, boxed his cow. It was really strong. They blew him a new cow. He ignored the buzzer, let her fly. The crowd went absolutely nuts. And immediately I looked at my friend Samantha Tully. I said, "I'll paint that." And at that time, I didn't know Corey. I didn't even know which rider it was. When I painted it, I sent it to Nellie Murphy. And Nellie was like, "I'm going to send this to Corey." And I was like, "Why?" And she's like, "Because that's Corey. And he actually won it that year." And I didn't even realize it. I just painted the moment.
When a moment like that happens, are you grabbing a camera real quick and taking pictures? So you've got, or is it all up there?
It's all up there. I mean, I'm one of those people that can see things in shapes. Like I can tell you who someone is by the way they sit a horse, whether it's a barrel racer or a team roper, because the great horsemen and women have certain ways they ride, and you can see the silhouette, but they might stand in front of me, and if I don't know them, I might not recognize their facial features. But if they're coming down the alley or even riding a saddle bronc, those guys all have different styles. And the great ones, you see it and you know it and you remember it.
Yeah. Tell me more about the sculpture there. The what did you say that was called?
It's called Enemy Lines. So it's actually based off a painting I did. So there's a moment when you're cutting, and I think it applies to bronc riding, bull riding, team roping, everything. There's that moment where everything's fixing to happen, but you don't know how it's going to play out. And so the whole point of this piece was when the cow and the horse actually face up, you don't know, neither one knows which way the other's going to go. And if you've ever like rode into a herd and got a cow out and had it just turn and square up to you and that pause, it's like so exciting. And it's like the same, I think, probably as getting ready to nod your head in the bronc chute or getting ready to nod your head in the roping pen. Like you just like, it's the excitement and like the buildup. And but like with this, the horse and the cow are enemies in cutting. So we named it enemy lions because they're faced up.
I'll be darned. For you to explain that way, I've never heard it explained that way before. But it's got to be true that there's got to be a moment there where you're sitting on a great horse and that cow's looking at you and you're like, okay, let's go.
Oh yeah, it is. And I mean, it even applies to barrels. Like at West Monroe the other night, my horse is very quiet in the alley. I try to keep mine that way. But that one, he's just so sure of himself. He knows what's fixing to happen, and he just waits. So the queen's trying to get out of the way. You can actually see it on the webcast, and the queen's trying to get out of the way. She's apologizing to me. He's just standing there, and like, so after my run, the gate guy asked me, he said, "Do you always smile when you take off in the alley?" And I was like, "Yeah, on this horse I do. Like he's exciting to run, and I know I can count on him." And but yeah, sitting there waiting on her to get out of the way, just taking it all in is it's when you have one you can count on, it's so fun.
There are a lot of barrel racers who would have been like, gosh darn rodeo queens.
No, I mean, them girls are doing their job. I mean, that's what they're there for. They're part of it. They're part of the pageant, and people love to see them. I mean, my little girl thinks that all the sparkles in the front are really cool. She doesn't want to run barrels. She likes the cow horse, but no, I mean, they're a part of everything too.
What do you do more? Do you ride cow horses or barrel race? Or do you have
I
time
really,
as a mom and a rancher and an artist?
not a ranch. We only have 30 acres, which I guess in East Texas kind of is a ranch. But I do show the cow horse more. It's been a long time since I've had a horse this good to actually show up at the pro rodeos and take a swing at them. So it's a pretty cool feeling. But I love the working cow horse and the challenge of making the horses the best that you can. The 3 event. I mean, it's a triathlon basically.
Josey, I am one of those people who is incredibly jealous of anybody who actually has talent, and you have got a massive amount of talent, and so I'm very jealous of you, to be bluntly honest. How long did it take to perfect that, to get to a point where, I mean, when did you start painting? When did you start drawing? When did you start feeling an interest in all of that?
Well, I've always been the kid who drawed in the margins of her notebook. I mean, in school, it's all I wanted to do is just sit and draw horses, and and it's really funny. I tell this story. It's actually on my website. I remember my 6th grade teacher getting on to me. Make a living drawing horses or riding them, so you need to pay attention. Well, she was wrong.
Yeah.
So I think it's fun. It's fun to tell that story because, like, I mean, she's no longer with us, but I get to look back and be like, I mean, because that was my dream. It was my passion. It's what I ended up doing.
Could you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Something glitched right there while you were telling that story. Could you tell me that story again?
You bet. So where you want me to start at? Yeah,
start at the very beginning, that you were the kid who used to draw horses and
okay.
all that in the margins of your notebook while you were in history class.
Okay. Yeah. So I was the kid that was always in the corner drawing horses in her notebook. And I've always drawn and doodled and sketched. It's kind of, I'm pretty ADD in case you didn't notice. So it's kind of, my little escape until it became a career. But I actually had a teacher when I was in the 6th grade that, her name was Mrs. Fran Nutt. She walked over and she got on to me because I was drawing in my pre-algebra class in the notebooks a horse. And she's like, "You're never going to ride horses for a living and you're never going to draw them. So you should probably pay attention." Well, I don't use a lot of pre-algebra, but my career is drawing and riding horses.
I think I took pre-algebra, and I know for a fact that I wasn't very good at it. I tried to substitute teach once upon a time, and that was a fiasco. Me and math, anything was bad. When did you get to a point where you felt comfortable selling what you put together and the pieces that you make? Because the stuff behind you is beautiful. It is
Thank
absolutely fantastic. And plug your website while you're at it. Tell folks where they can go to find more.
So my website is www.streakin, streakinb art.com. I never thought it would get to the point it's gotten to. And it's grown, like something will happen that will make it grow a little bit more. Like my first big break was honestly from the rodeo community. Casey and Gail Jones do Rodeo Vegas every year at the NFR. And they reached out in 2012 and were like, hey, would you want to do a poster for Rodeo Vegas? And so I was like, of course, sure. And I actually have it signed by all the NFR qualifiers hanging in my office. Um, and that was kind of a big break. And then another one came along where I did this live video, and that was a big break. And then I've actually branched into doing murals with spray cans. And so that was a big break because doing one of those, which I actually traded for a snaffle bit horse, turned into doing my vet at Mid-South Equine. If you ever go to Mid-South Equine to the vet, the big mural on the wall in there of all the different disciplines I did with a spray paint can and a scissor lift. So
I'll be darned. I'll be darned. I have a really good friend who's a bullfighter up in the Northwest, Rowdy Berry. And I don't know if you've ever met Rowdy or not, but he does kind of the same thing. He works in a variety of different, what is the proper phrase, disciplines, media. He does everything from sculpture to, he's done a bunch of work for Wrangler. He loves to do things that are, I think with charcoal, a lot of like black and white things like, but
Yeah.
he's been able to, and it sounds like you've done the same thing through his career, just branched out. And I mentioned his name just to see if you guys had crossed paths because you're both so talented at what you do. And he said part of the fun of this for him has been branching out and discovering new media and new disciplines and things like that.
It is like with the mural. I've never wanted to do murals because the paintbrush and being in someone's house and doing something that big. And Janie Jill Toynton out of Boulder, Colorado, she had a Shiner's Voodoo Doctor yearling for sale, and I was calling actually for a client. And she's like, well, what would you charge me to do a mural? And I was like, I don't want to do a mural. And she's like, no, you don't understand. I want you to take a spray can and do a cowhorse scene on the side of my shipping container. And I was like, oh, well, now I'm interested. Like that. Don't threaten me with a good time. So I did this big mural. You can actually see it on my website. And it's got the herd work, the fence work, and a run stop. And it's on her shipping container there. And so we named the colt. We brought him home, and I actually showed him the shirt snaffle bit. His barn name is Graffiti. So.
I'm reminded of Michelangelo painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. When will you make an end? When I'm finished.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea how long that was going to take you going into it?
I didn't at that point because it was like, I'd never done it. And it didn't take near as the spray can does not take that long.
Yeah.
And especially because, it's going to be more abstract. You're not going to have all the tiny details. So it took me about 3 days of working on and off at her place when, of course, they think it's hot in Boulder. So she just keeps coming out trying to make me quit because it's a whopping 90 degrees. And I'm like, I live in East Texas. I run a sweatshirt right now. This is amazing.
Yeah. I'm looking at a piece on your website called Triggered. And it looks like somebody's about to get their butt bucked off. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Where'd that come from?
I paint a lot of emotional stuff. Sometimes I paint when I'm mad, and it comes out really well. I had one a few years back that it's called Forgiven, and it's a girl. I do a lot of the pinup stuff too. I've branched off. I do it, and it's a girl, and it looks like she's like coming through a door like this. And had it actually the year the NFR was in Fort Worth. I had it at my booth, and a horse trader from the Northwest come by, and he stopped and he looked at it. And it is astounding how many of the horse community, both rodeo and the show community, are really feely and they get it. And he walked by and he looked at it and he stopped. And I don't really know this guy very well. But he's like, how mad were you when you painted that? And I was like, actually really mad. Furious. But he didn't know me to know that or the story behind the piece at all, but he just got it when he walked by and saw it.
I've been accused of having a bit of a creative streak. I don't know that I agree with that totally. But
No,
I
I'm
know
sure.
this. A lot of times I wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with an idea that I want to pursue. Is that, I mean,
Oh yeah.
I don't think anybody who's the least bit, none of us operate on a 9 to 5, and I'm not comparing myself to you. You're incredible. But none of us operate on a 9 to 5 schedule. I guess in the Western way of life, 9 to 5 doesn't exist anyway.
No. No, not at all. But I do get what you're saying. Like I can get inspiration anywhere from a song to I actually just finished a piece that'll go live on my website later this week. And it actually became inspiration from a customer. She has several of my pieces and she messaged me and she's like, have you ever thought about painting uh Luke 15 when Jesus uses the parable of the 99 versus the one with the sheep? She's like, because that's such a cowboy thing. Like you go to gather cattle, if you've got 59 head and you should have 60 cows, you're going to go find the 60th cow. So I actually just finished this longhorn painting of two longhorns, and one's branded 99 and one's branded 1. And then there's a rider in the background looking at them. And she actually gave me that idea. But some stuff will come from music. I did a dancing piece a while back, and I titled it Something in the Orange because I love Zach Bryan music. And sometimes it's like I talked about, moments in the show pen, or like the opening ceremonies at a rodeo. I did a live painting earlier this year for the Freedom Ball here in Sulphur Springs, where they raise money to take care of the Vietnam Wall that's here in town. And it was for the military. And I had actually just come from the Bowie Rodeo. And so, or not Bowie, I'm sorry, Archer City Rodeo. And watching them post the colors inspired the piece that I did for the military, because there's nothing more American than cowboys, the American flag, and the military. So
yeah, there you go. Okay, here's your favorite kid question. You've only got one daughter, right? So you don't have to worry about that. Is there one piece, something you've done that you think of as, this is my favorite?
oh yes, and it's actually over here on my wall, and I named it after the Randall King song "Hey Cowgirl," but it's it's of my daughter with her leg cocked over the saddle, sitting on her horse, and she was at a Pee Wee rodeo. And I won't sell it. It's hanging on my wall over here, and I'll never sell it because she inspired it.
Yeah. Josey Butler is joining us, cowgirl artist. Your family, you shared a story on Facebook, and it was a story about a calf that your husband was out taking care of, and he didn't think the calf would make it through the night, but he doctored the calf, and you've got some fighting bull calves on your place too, right?
We had he come home with this calf from the sale barn, and he was raked the day he came on. I mean, he was like barely past bottle calf size. But you know how those fighting bulls, like when you walk past their pens, they'll sway and they'll look at you. And that's what this calf would do. He would stand in the corner of the pen, wouldn't come near you. And I kept telling my husband, I'm like, that thing is like, he's got to have some fighting bull in him. And sure enough, when he started roping and tying him down, because he had a calf horse he was working on for a guy, if you didn't get clear whenever you untied him, he would take a shot at you. And if he hit you, he'd come back for more. If he didn't, he'd keep going. Like that, he has to have some fighting bull in him.
And that calf actually kind of, the way you told the story, it sounded like almost nurtured the sick calf.
He did. It made me cry because I walked out there and the sick calf she was another one we'd gotten from the sale barn, and apparently she didn't get enough cord whenever we got her to get rid of all the cooties they bring from the sale barn. And she got sick and got down, and we were trying to doctor her, had her bedded up. And yeah, he never left her side. It was really cool because they didn't come together. She came after him, and we'd probably had him 3 or 4 months at this time. And but it's just, part of taking care of animals. Like, I had a horse that we had to put down several years ago, and when we, removed him and went and buried him, like all the other horses that night didn't eat. Like it's astounding what you get to see with the animals.
Yeah, we don't give them near enough credit for
No.
what they feel and what they think and all of those things. I'm right there with you on that. So tell us where we can find all of your work again. What's your schedule? Where are you competing? Are you showing a cow horse someplace, or you're entered in some rodeos coming up? Have you got any art shows coming up? Just kind of tell us what's coming up for you.
Oh, so this year gets crazy here pretty quick. I am going to enter Belton. You know, rodeoing's not first priority, but while I have a horse like this, I'm definitely going to go to what I can. So I'll be at Belton, and then I'll be getting ready for the Celebration of Champions. I have a mare qualified in the limited open bridle for the World Championships, and then I'll be showing in the Derby too on my 4-year-old now. And then I'll plan on going to some of the rodeos, but I will also have a booth at the World's Greatest Horseman. So if you come to watch the World's Greatest, which I recommend everybody does, it is the Will Rogers on Saturday night of the World's Greatest Finals is like final round of the NFR. It gets loud, and it is really cool because those old bridle horses that they show in that World's Greatest, I mean, that's like watching the top 15 in the barrel racing at the NFR. Like, you are seeing the best of the best in the industry, and they go wide open, and it's wild. It's really cool. But I'll have a trade show booth there as well as be showing, and then start going to the Texas rodeos and see what we can get done.
Awesome. Josey, I appreciate your time. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So one question that I should have asked you that have I not asked you? What have I missed?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what I want to
I just think the entire story, the entire package of someone who's a mom. Has your daughter inherited your artistic ability? Is she?
Yeah, it's very genetic in our family. My mom's side of the family are, well, I guess both sides. But my mom's side of the family are all bluegrass musicians, so everybody's super artsy, super feely, a little bit hillbilly. And but yeah, my daughter, she paints really well, but I'll tell you what, she sculpts amazing. Like, and whenever I started sculpting full time, I got this clay it's called oil-based modeling clay. It never dries out. So she made herself a pirate ship and would make her own characters and kill them off, and had this like whole running storyline going on. And I wish I'd have known about it before Play-Doh, because it was a lot of time getting Play-Doh off the floor, and this stuff never dries out. But she's very artsy, but she really likes the music. She kind of goes back to, my mom's side of the family. Like, she likes to play music and loves fiddle, and she's got kind of an old soul. Like, she listens to, she doesn't like a lot of new music, but she's a little critic. So she's very, very into the music, and I have some friends in the music industry. So they encourage her. So that's really cool.
Thanks to Josey Butler for joining us on the Steve Kenyon Podcast. We hope you will like and subscribe to our 8 Seconds Media Facebook page. There might be some changes around the corner. I'll tell you more about that in the next week or two, but there's some things we want to do to kind of freshen things up, for lack of a better term. Hope you will join us on our YouTube channel. You really need to look at this interview on YouTube. And she's got some of her artwork that she shares and shows, and that you can see if you look at the interview. So please check out our YouTube channel from 8secondsmedia.com. We're sponsored by Wrangler, by the Justin Boot Company. Thanks to Resistol, to Equinity, online at teamequinity.com, to M2 Ranch Jerky, to the Grandview at Las Vegas, to Next Gen Rodeo, to the Cowboy Channel, to Rodeo Life Magazine, to the Gooding Pro Rodeo. They're celebrating their 100th anniversary at the Gooding County Fair this year in Gooding, Idaho. Come join us and be beer-worthy in the month of August. Thanks to all of our sponsors and all of the people who helped to bring you the Steve Kenyon Podcast. God bless everybody. I'm Steve Kenyon.